Greetings. It is a pleasure to be here today, and I want to thank the World Anti-Bullying Forum for including my team in this conference. I also want to thank the ancestors for providing a path of peace through which to address issues of violence. I use the pronouns she and her. This research was interdisciplinary in nature, and during this presentation, you will hear from Ajatsatru Pathak, Drs. Leonel Torres Pagan and Nicole Velez Agosto, trained psychologists of Puerto Rican descent who work with school-age students in the US. As a veteran K-12 New York City teacher and teacher educator, I understand the limited professional development opportunities available to help teachers and staff understand and address issues of violence in schools. This study grew out of my personal experiences in 2017. First, I began to work as a researcher at the Center for Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College in New York City. It was at the Center for Puerto Rican Studies where I met fellow researcher Dr. Leonel Torres Pagan. Secondly, in mid-September, Hurricane Maria traversed the Puerto Rican archipelago, leaving massive destruction that continues to affect the community today. Thirdly, by late September, a few short weeks after the beginning of the school year, many in New York City were shaken by news of school violence in one of its high schools. The report described how one student of Puerto Rican descent, who said he was a victim of bullying, killed a student, leaving another seriously injured. While the youth was incarcerated, his mother struggled to find a return flight from Puerto Rico. These events inspired me to focus my research on understanding how teachers perceive their anti-bullying training. We decided to focus on middle school teachers as middle school students experience the highest rates of school bullying. While many would agree that teachers are first responders during instances of school violence, little is known about the effects of their training on teachers' ability to adopt national legislation in the US to address the issue of teacher training. While administrators reported that during the 2015-2016 school year, about 93% of public schools provided training on safety procedures, that is, how to handle emergencies for classroom teachers, and 84% of schools reported providing training on school management. What that training entailed remains unclear. It is also unclear whether anti-bullying programs deliver the benefits they claim to, as little is known about the training teachers receive or whether ongoing support exists after the initial training period. The purpose of this study was to conduct a systematic review of the literature to understand in-service middle school teachers' perceptions of their anti-bullying training. The goal was to present policymakers with a synthesis that highlights how training impacts teachers' ability to reduce school violence and identify practices that teachers consider effective in creating positive school climates. In the next section, Mr. Pathak will discuss the research process. Ajatsatru Pathak is a health and informatics librarian at the Health Professions Library at Hunter College, where he teaches information literacy and provides research consultations and training on data tools. He also provides research assistance to researchers working on systematic review projects.
Hi, my name is AJ Pathak, and I am a librarian at Hunter College of the City University of New York. I work on this project with Dr. Rivera, Pagan, and Augusto. As a librarian, I provide the library research assistant to the team. We met several times during the spring semester of 2018. I helped the team to select appropriate library databases and develop search string for the project. For this project, we use licensed databases such as Thematic, EBSCO, Teacher Reference Center, PsycInfo, and ProQuest Dissertation and Thesis. I also checked the references of the project for accuracy. And I just want to show you the databases that be used, and that these are listed under education. And so we use ERIC Education, EBSCO, then we use Psych Info, and then we use Teacher Reference Center. We also use a dissertation database, and which is this one listed here. We use the dissertation and thesis. Okay. Thank you so much. And if you have any question, please contact me. My email is given here. Thank you so much.
In this section, we will listen to Dr. Leonel Torres Pagan, who is a licensed clinical psychologist for New York and currently holds an assistant clinical director position for a group practice.
Clinical. Before I start, we thank the organizers once more for hosting and preparing this event. I'll be presenting an overview of methods for our study to illustrate and highlight certain elements of the research. We use the spider statement as a tool commonly used for synthesis. As you can see here, displayed by columns, study focused on middle school teachers and educators as a sample. We were interested on perceptions of anti-bullying training and prevention programs. The study was not limited by framework. We evaluate objective and subjective data regarding the phenomenon of interest. And our research type is qualitative. Next slide. Initially, we conducted a systemic review of literature. We start by consulting an expert librarian, who is also part of the team, and presenter here. These steps allow us to have a much refined layout for our search. Many of these steps included inclusion and exclusion criteria, assessment for search components, including Boolean operators, the right selection of the source materials, and that includes journals, theses, and other sources, data extraction, guidance around Cochrane methods and Prisma. Some of the results are highlighted in this image next for you. Following slide. For the analysis and synthesis, we follow a cyclical process where we often meet and discuss input collectively, including agreements and disagreements. As part of the process, we conducted a confidence assessment focusing on methodological limitations, coherence, adequacy, and relevance. For the synthesis, Thomas and Harden's framework was implemented, which allow us to identify, organize, and summarize themes. Focus on the intersection and or relationship with the phenomenon of interest. Results are also displayed in this image. This is the end of my segment. Now, the next presenter will continue to discuss the following section. Once more, thank you for your time.
The findings revealed a dichotomy in teachers' perceptions of their anti-bullying training, which was described as both helpful and unsupportive. 6 analytical themes emerged: awareness, experiential knowledge, responsiveness, unawareness, reactiveness, and contradiction, which describe the range of perspectives presented in the data. Awareness demonstrated teachers' understanding of bullying actions, such as cyberbullying. Awareness also included teachers' knowledge of how to respond to bullying incidents. Experiential knowledge resulted from teachers taking on self-studies and also included work-related professional development experiences. Responsiveness refers to teachers' understanding of what actions and practices could be put in place to address bullying. Unawareness related to teachers' lack of knowledge and reactions that did not diffuse violence. And contradiction was evidenced by beliefs that the bully development does not reflect that the bully development and believes that the bully development do not reflect the literature on school violence. And now we will listen to Dr. Vélez Agosto, a trained psychologist with a background in developmental psychology and vulnerable populations.
Get perspectives of their anti-bullying professional development experiences or training. Our study showed insights into how they think about and what they think about their training. It also addresses shortcomings in previous research about anti-bullying training and eliminates gaps in research that are still needed. For example, how do we measure if these anti-bullying trainings are being effective, or what is the relevance for the teachers of these practices, and what exactly are the best practices to develop anti-bullying training. Our study limitations were general limitations that we find in qualitative systemic reviews. One of them is that it can lead to overlapping in different findings because of the research periods that are gathered. Also, qualitative systemic review are still a new methodology, so there are still attention to be paid for qualitative rigor. We did and we're transparent in research stages as to prove credibility and trustworthiness to mitigate this limitation. Also, there were other factors contributing to limitations in comparing studies. Not all studies reported complete demographic factors, as well as little was known about teachers' cultural and educational backgrounds, which could lead and impact their training experiences. Therefore, we have some recommendations for future research. First, we need research exploring what is the relationship between teachers' training and policy development. Also, comparisons and measurements of already established anti-bullying policies with teachers' experiences. We also recommend studies about development of training, which formats of structures are better to train for anti-bullying. For example, comparisons between lengths of training or what models are used to do the training. And last but not least, research focus on measuring effectiveness of training experiences and actual anti-bullying practices.
In conclusion, we find and extol the viewers and listeners that it is paramount to understand how teachers perceive their ability to support their students if we are to help prepare teachers to address and reduce violence. The findings reveal that despite their anti-bullying training, participants were unable to define bullying, underestimated the severity and impact of bullying, failed to address bullying or discounted offenses by claiming that actions were developmentally or gender appropriate, were more likely to refer students to other adults in the building rather than address the problem in the classroom, did not plan for the reintegration of students, usually the bully, into the classroom community in cases where students were suspended, were unclear as to how to prevent bullying, and reported that the teacher training was limited in scope and duration. Thank you so much for your presence, and you can reach the team through the addresses presented on the slides.